And this is Writer's Voices with Monica and Caroline. I'm your host, Monica Hadley. And with me is my co-host and mother, Caroline Kilborn.
And good afternoon, everyone. And if you're listening on Monday, good morning. And
good
we
morning.
hope it's another beautiful day. And I think it's supposed to be beautiful the whole week.
Oh, boy. I told somebody I think Iowa's the winner in the climate change.
So far,
yeah. Yeah. In fact, if it gets really bad, we may even have beachfront property.
Oh, dear. Oh, come on.
Okay. All right. Well, you gotta laugh. I know. You gotta laugh.
That's
or
true.
else you just just cry. So
well, you either have to laugh or cry. That's what your dad used to say.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Today we're with Jim Brooks, MD, and he has spent his life helping people create health for themselves through natural medicine. He is a practicing psychiatrist who has studied and applied Maharishi Ayurvedic for many years. He received extensive training from some of the most renowned Ayurvedic physicians in India. He is the founding medical director of the Maharishi Ayurvedic Health Centers in Los Angeles and Washington, D.C. He is also a teacher of the Transcendental Meditation Technique and has authored many journal articles and book chapters on Ayurvedic and mental health. And I'm assuming he's here for this particular thing that they're having now.
So the title of this book is Reflections on Maharishi Ayurveda and Mental Health, and you're giving a talk.
Yes,
soon?
on Sunday night.
So if you're
13th.
listening on Friday, then this is November 11th. So Sunday, 8 p.m. at
Dalby Hall on campus. It's at 8:00.
And is it open to the public?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And what is the topic of your talk?
The topic, I'm actually sharing that particular talk with Dr. Robert Schneider, and I think we named it Mind Over Age. Because the first part of the talk, Dr. Schneider will give about methods to prevent the aging process. And then we've figured out a way to tie that into mental health because there's so much research going on now that ideal mental, that really good healthy mind, healthy emotions is correlated with longevity. So that's kind of how we put the two together, even though on the surface they're very different topics.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there were studies. I remember the nun studies about that writing can really help with mental health and aging.
Yes, there's actually quite a few things that that are associated with, for example, group therapy is associated in people with cancer is associated with longevity from cancer. So there's a lot of things that are emotionally or mentally balancing or emotionally balancing, many different types of things and types of activities that are associated with longevity.
Now, what do you mean longevity from cancer?
Well, surviving.
Yeah. And what is it
cancer
that helps
survival.
Contribute to that?
Group therapy.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That was one study that was done. So it's fascinating to see the correlation and the connection between the mind and the body.
Yeah.
Well,
so we'll be talking about that on Sunday
When you have
night.
something as serious as cancer, you tend to think you're the only one. I mean, why is this happening to me and I'm the only one? And what do I do?
Exactly.
You're just lost.
It's very comforting and soothing to have other people that understand.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What drew you to the field of mental health and Ayurveda?
Well, when I was a medical student, I went through various rotations, such as surgery and family medicine and things like that. And when I got to the area of psychiatry, I was immediately drawn. One, because I just love people. So I like to sit and talk to people, and they told me I'd get paid for that. And I thought, this is the field for me. And also I realized that that transcendental meditation, which is the sort of the cornerstone treatment of Maharishi Ayurveda, which I was practicing at that time, and there was research coming out at that time showing that a mental technique could not only help people with mental illnesses, but also could help healthy people become even happier, just normal healthy people, as well as helping people with medical problems. So I thought, well, this is a mental technique, transcendental meditation, and psychiatry is a field of the mind, and yet it's absent. This whole knowledge of how to meditate, how to transcend, how to experience deeper levels of oneself was absent from the whole field of mental health. and still is to a large extent. So that over the years, I've had increasing inspiration to write a book on what's missing in the field of mental health today.
Now, I have to wonder sometimes, meditators may think that by meditating, that's going to solve everything, going to cure everything, and yet we still have mental health issues in this community.
Right.
How do you,
Well, one of the things I do believe that the transcendental meditation and the various supportive aspects of Maharishi Ayurveda are very helpful to mental health. I mean, there's numerous studies showing that, for example, with insurance companies, that people that are practicing transcendental meditation have significantly better mental health and physical health because they utilize inpatient and outpatient services much less than the average person. These are a number of published studies. So it's a good thing, and it's helpful. And I think also it's not the only thing, but it's very the thing that I'm looking at is that the vast majority of people in the world, really don't know anything about how to meditate and the value of settling down and just experiencing quietness. And that's really who we are. And what I think what's missing in the field of mental health today is that it's addressing, like, for example, who are we? That really is the question I'm raising in this book. Who are we really? Are we our biochemistry? Are we our brain? Am I my brain? Or am I my thoughts or my feelings? And I think most people know, wait, there's a deeper part of me, who I really am. And that part is a part that's a non-active part of who we are, because most people aren't aware of it because we're so active all the time. We're thinking, we're doing, and yet if we learn through the techniques in Maharishi Ayurveda, especially transcendental meditation, how to calm the mind to its most settled state, then that silent part of us, non-active part of us, is also a place which is very joyful, it's very blissful part of ourselves, and it's a very calm, peaceful part of ourselves. And that whole area is that whole part of ourselves isn't addressed by modern mental health. What they address is the biochemistry. The therapy works on our thoughts and emotions, but no one is really addressing the self, the whole person, who we really are. And it's kind of like, well, if you're missing the essence of who we are, how effective are the treatments going to be? Mm-hmm. And in fact, 1/3 of the population of the United States at any given time has a diagnosable mental illness. That's over 100 million people.
1/3?
Yes.
Really?
So that's 40 million people with anxiety disorders.
1 out of 3. Well, Mom, I know you and I are healthy, so
you're on the other 2/3. You lucky guys. But it's quite staggering, the statistics. 25 million people have substance abuse, alcohol or substance abuse disorders. 40 million have anxiety disorders, including post-traumatic stress disorder, and 16 million have depression.
Yeah.
So, and we're talking about all these medicines that are being used, and no one's addressing the natural, very few people are really addressing the natural approaches that actually scientific research shows are very powerful in terms of balancing the mind and emotions.
And there's still this stigma surrounding mental health, too.
Yeah. There is such a stigma.
Yeah.
And I think the stigma is because, and in actuality, mental illness is no different than physical illness in terms of, if you study what's going on, the brain has some imbalanced chemistry. Just like in high blood pressure, diabetes, whatever, there's an imbalance there. And yet what happens if your brain is imbalanced, you get judged harshly, really, by others. And the reason is because it affects our behavior. So, when the heart is imbalanced, you might have a heart attack or something. No one's going to judge you. But when you have a brain imbalance, then people are going to see you acting maybe strange or depressed or whatever. And you kind of aren't the life of the party. You're kind of a bummer, whatever. Yeah. So but really in actuality, it's just an imbalance like any other condition. So in my mind, we should as a society be even more sympathetic and compassionate toward people with mental illness, because they can't help it any more than a person with any other condition.
That's right. But why is it that people think you can help it?
I don't know. I mean, it's like what Trump said in that talk when he was talking to veterans and saying, well, you're the strong ones, the weak ones have PTSD.
Right, right.
You know,
That's ignorance. I hate to say it. I support our new president because that's what a good thing to do, but I think that's an ignorant statement.
But I think, the reason is that we have a tendency to think that way is because maybe it's because we don't want to think that it can happen
exactly
to us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because, and many people actually, for example, military people, when they get depressed and they have suicidal thoughts, they don't tell anyone. Because if they tell anyone, they'll lose their job in the military. Mm-hmm. And they're afraid, so they don't, and then they end up killing themselves. One person every day in the United States from the military kills themselves. Every day. That's the statistic now. And a lot of it's because of the stigma. People are afraid to ask for help.
Yeah. Yeah. And because if it really is something that's beyond our control, then it's something to be afraid of.
Exactly. And it can happen to anyone and many people in their, if not themselves, at one time or other in their lives, but maybe a family member.
Yeah.
And it's uncomfortable, being around somebody who might be, suffering from mental illness. And yet there's wonderful treatments available. And I'm just, with this book, I'm bringing in this whole field of natural medicine from India that's been, I would say, refreshed and re-enlivened by Maharishi for our modern era. But basically, it's just the knowledge of that there's a whole part of us that's not being acknowledged and not being accessed for the benefit of the mental health of the population.
Well, Jim, we just have a couple minutes left. Can you read a little bit
from
the book?
I wanted to read a section from a part of the book. It's actually in the third essay, and this book has 4 essays, and it's the origins of mental and emotional imbalance. What causes mental illness from this system, from the point of view of this system? The great Ayurvedic physician Maharishi Charaka states in the Charaka Samhita that the main cause of disease is pragya parad, the mistake of the intellect. Pragya parad means that the intellect is caught up in the ever-changing boundaries and forgets about the self, the underlying unbounded reality that is the inner source of intelligence, creativity, peace, and joy. It causes us to identify ourselves in terms of boundaries, to believe that we are time-space bound beings, when the truth is that although we are indeed operating in time and space, our deepest and truest nature lies beyond the field of boundaries. When pragya parad is eliminated and we experience our identity as the self, the result is self-esteem, happiness, stability, and inner peace.
Well, thank you, Dr. Brooks. That was Dr. Brooks reading from Reflections on Maharishi Ayurveda and Mental Health. And you'll be speaking at Dolby Hall this Sunday, November 13th.
Yep.
At 2 p.m.
8 p.m.
And the title of the presentation
Mind
again?
Over Aging. And then afterwards I'll be doing a book signing because it's
right
by the bookstore, so it's very conveniently
wonderful.
located.
Well, thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me.
All
it was
right.
lots of fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we look forward to speaking with you again. Oh,
Thanks.
one last question. Is this your first book?
This is my second book.
Your second book. And
actually.
what was the
It's
title?
actually my third book.
Okay.
But, the one book was a poetry book, which was really fun, really cool. So I'd never written poetry before I went to India. And then when I went there, I got so inspired. I wrote a book of poetry. But the other book on Ayurveda is called Ayurvedic Secrets to Longevity and Total Health. That was written in published in 1995. With Prentice Hall Publishers.
And
so
this is published by MUM
MUM
Press?
Press, yeah.
All right. Well, congratulations on your new book, and look forward to hearing more from you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. See you next week on Writers' Voices.